On the morning of April 3, 1974, an ominous tension gripped much of the central and eastern United States. Residents across the Ohio Valley and the Deep South woke to a humid, unsettled atmosphere, unaware that within hours their lives would be irrevocably changed. This was not just another spring storm day. It would become one of the darkest chapters in American weather history. By the time the sun rose on April 4th, the skies would have unleashed the most violent tornado outbreak ever recorded. Over an 18-hour stretch, 148 tornadoes would tear across 13 states, ranging from Michigan to Mississippi, and even reaching into Ontario, Canada. Of those, a staggering 30 would be rated F4 or F5 on the Fujita scale, representing the most violent tornadoes possible. The sheer volume of destruction is difficult to comprehend. More than 330 people would be killed, over 6,000 injured, and tens of thousands left without homes. The storm system carved a path of ruin nearly 2,600 miles long, an unrelenting, chaotic barrage from the skies. This wasn't just a natural disaster, it was a meteorological assault. Communities were leveled in seconds, entire neighborhoods wiped clean, and cities like Xenia, Ohio, and Brandenburg, Kentucky would be forever changed. The 1974 super outbreak remains a landmark in severe weather history, not just for its scale, but for what it revealed about our vulnerability to atmospheric forces beyond control. To understand how such a massive disaster could occur, we must examine the forces behind it, the perfect meteorological recipe that would turn an ordinary spring day into an unprecedented catastrophe. To truly grasp the terrifying force behind the 1974 super outbreak, we need to look at the atmospheric conditions that came together like pieces of a deadly puzzle. In early April 1974, a powerful low-pressure system was steadily intensifying over the North American interior plains. This deepening cyclone acted like a vast engine, driving the severe weather. From the Gulf of Mexico, an unusually strong surge of warm, moist air pushed northward, flooding the Mississippi and Ohio River valleys, with the fuel needed to power violent storms. At the same time, cold, dry air was descending from Canada, creating a sharp temperature contrast, a key ingredient in storm development. But what really set this event apart was the extreme wind shear. From the surface all the way up to the jet stream, wind speeds and directions shifted dramatically, generating the spin needed for supercell thunderstorms, the breeding ground of the most violent tornadoes. Radar and satellite imagery from April 3rd revealed a classic comma-shaped storm system, a signature of explosive weather setups. Forecasters, using technology from the 1950s, knew severe weather was likely, but they could not predict the sheer scale or intensity that was coming. So overwhelmed were they by the rapidly multiplying tornado reports that weather officials in Indiana issued a tornado warning for the entire state. A historic first and only time such a statewide alert has ever been given. This volatile mix of warm, cold, and rapidly shifting winds created the perfect environment to unfurl tornadoes to form in unprecedented numbers. It was nature's perfect storm, and it was about to wreak havoc like never before. The 1974 super outbreak didn't start with a bang. It began quietly, almost deceptively calm. The first tornado touched down in Indiana just before 10 o'clock in the morning on April 3rd. But as the day warmed, the atmosphere became more and more unstable, setting the stage for a terrifying escalation. By early afternoon, tornado activity intensified rapidly. Across states like Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, and Tennessee, tornadoes began forming in quick succession. At one point, as many as 15 tornadoes were simultaneously on the ground, twisting and tearing through the landscape. Some of these storms moved at blistering speeds of nearly 60 miles per hour, giving residents precious little time to react or take shelter. One harrowing incident occurred in Kennard, Indiana, where an F4 tornado struck an elementary school. Though the building's upper floors were ripped away, many students survived by taking refuge in the basement, highlighting the critical importance of proper shelter during tornadoes. Meanwhile, in Decatur, Illinois, witnesses reported seeing two separate funnels twisting down as a tornado tore through homes and businesses, intensifying the chaos. Emergency centers and weather offices were inundated with reports, creating a chaotic stream of incoming data that was difficult to process in real time. This early stage was only a grim prelude to the devastation that would grow exponentially in the hours ahead. As the afternoon wore on and the sun began its descent, The Super Outbreak reached its most violent and destructive phase. A series of powerful, long-lived tornadoes carved terrifying paths across the Ohio Valley and into the Deep South. One of the standout tornadoes touched down near Monticello, Indiana, around 4:50 p.m. This F4 tornado tracked for an astonishing 109 miles, making it one of the longest tornado paths of the entire outbreak. It devastated the downtown area of Monticello and killed 19 people along its route, leaving a trail of shattered homes and uprooted trees. Shortly before 3:30 p.m. Central Time, a massive F5 tornado formed in Kentucky and charged towards Brandenburg, a small town on the Ohio River. Unlike the typical thin funnel shape, witnesses described it as a solid wall of black cloud and debris stretching nearly half a mile wide. With estimated winds exceeding 250 miles per hour, it obliterated much of Brandenburg, wiping out well-built houses down to their foundations. Tragically, 31 people lost their lives in this one tornado, with 18 fatalities concentrated along a single street. This remains the only F5 tornado ever recorded in Kentucky's history. Meanwhile, Louisville, Kentucky, faced its own nightmare. When an F4 tornado tore through parts of the city shortly after 4:30 p.m., the tornado damaged numerous buildings, including iconic landmarks like Churchill Downs Racetrack, bringing the outbreak's destruction directly into a major urban area. The most infamous tornado of the day struck Xenia, Ohio at 4:40 p.m. This catastrophic F5 tornado ripped through the city of approximately 25,000 residents. The devastation was staggering. 34 people died, more than 1,600 were injured, and nearly half of Xenia's buildings were destroyed or severely damaged. 7 of the city's 12 schools were completely demolished. Survivor stories tell of homes disintegrating around families as the roar of the tornado sounded like a squadron of jet engines. Mike DeWine, then a young prosecutor and future governor of Ohio, sheltered in his basement office, convinced he would not survive. As evening fell, the destruction spread southward. In Alabama, 2 powerful tornadoes followed nearly the same path just 30 minutes apart. These twin storms killed 55 people combined. One home was struck by both tornadoes, first losing its roof, then being completely blown away by the second. The F5 tornado that devastated Gwynn, Alabama, stayed on the ground for almost 2 hours, causing 28 fatalities and immense destruction. This peak period was the deadliest and most intense phase of the outbreak, forever marking April 3, 1974, as one of the darkest days in American weather history. When the final tornado dissipated early on April 4th, 1974, the full extent of the super outbreak's destruction became chillingly clear. Over the course of approximately 18 hours, 148 tornadoes had touched down across 13 U.S. states, stretching from the Midwest to the Southeast and even into Ontario, Canada. Of these tornadoes, an unprecedented 30 were rated F4 or F5, marking them as some of the most violent ever recorded in a single day. 7 of these were F5 tornadoes, the highest rating possible, each representing near total devastation along their paths. The human toll was immense and heartbreaking. The death count reached 335, with thousands more injured. Official estimates placed the number of injured between 5,484 and 6,142 people. Entire families and communities were shattered in minutes. Property damage was equally staggering. More than 15,000 homes and buildings were destroyed, while an additional 17,000 sustained damage. This left tens of thousands of people displaced and struggling to rebuild their lives amid the rubble. Financially, the disaster inflicted approximately $600 million in damage at the time, which, when adjusted for inflation, amounts to roughly $3.8 billion in today's currency. The combined path length of all tornadoes spanned nearly 2,600 miles, the equivalent of driving from New York City to Las Vegas. In response to the crisis, then-President Richard Nixon declared 10 states federal disaster areas, opening the door for federal aid and support. The widespread damage affected not only rural communities, but also towns and cities across multiple states, underscoring the outbreak's overwhelming scale. These numbers tell a story of immense power, loss, and the extraordinary challenge faced by those who lived through the 1974 super outbreak. In the immediate hours following the tornado outbreak, the devastation overwhelmed emergency services and local communities alike. Power lines were downed. communication systems failed, and roads were blocked by debris, making rescue efforts difficult. Yet amid the chaos, neighbors became first responders, offering shelter, food, and aid to those trapped or injured. In towns like Brandenburg, Kentucky, survivors used whatever means they had, old trucks, farm equipment, and anything available, to clear debris and search for loved ones. The local fairgrounds transformed into makeshift shelters and aid stations as displaced residents sought refuge from the cold night. Search and rescue teams, including National Guard units and volunteers, arrived from across affected states. They combed through rubble piles that once were homes, schools, and businesses, hoping to find survivors. The scenes were haunting. Entire neighborhoods reduced to concrete slabs and twisted metal, vehicles crushed and scattered, and personal belongings strewn across fields for miles. Beyond physical destruction, the psychological impact on survivors was profound. Many experienced lasting trauma and anxiety, particularly during storms in the years that followed. Reports of nightmares and a pervasive sense of vulnerability became common. The event shattered the sense of safety that many had taken for granted. Relief organizations like the American Red Cross and Salvation Army mobilized quickly to provide food, clothing, and medical care. State and federal aid programs helped families begin the long and difficult process of rebuilding. For many, the Super Outbreak was not just a natural disaster, but a life-altering event that tested the resilience and spirit of entire communities. The bonds formed in those dark days became the foundation for recovery and hope. The 1974 Super Outbreak left a lasting legacy that reshaped how meteorologists understand and respond to tornadoes. The massive scale and intensity of the outbreak revealed serious limitations in the technology and warning systems of the time. In the years that followed, the National Weather Service underwent a major transformation. The outdated radar technology was replaced by Doppler radar, capable of detecting wind rotation inside storms. This breakthrough gave forecasters critical early warning signs, improving tornado detection and warning lead times significantly. Emergency communication systems were upgraded nationwide. NOAA weather radio coverage expanded, delivering continuous storm alerts directly to the public. This allowed for faster, more precise warnings and helped save lives in future events. The outbreak also fueled advances in tornado research. Scientists studied the 1974 storm extensively, gaining new insights into tornado formation, structure, and behavior. These studies helped refine tornado intensity scales and improve storm prediction models. Perhaps most importantly, the Super Outbreak changed public awareness and preparedness. It underscored the importance of community drills, storm shelters, and education about tornado safety. Many schools and homes now include designated safe rooms, a practice that became widespread due to lessons learned from this disaster. Though the tornadoes of April 3rd and 4th claimed hundreds of lives and devastated thousands of communities, their legacy is one of resilience and progress. The science and safety measures developed in response to this catastrophe continue to protect millions today. The 1974 Super Outbreak remains a stark reminder of nature's power and a testament to human determination to understand, prepare for, and survive even the most violent storms.